This happened 18 years ago, when I was 11, in a quiet neighborhood just outside Manchester. My mum was a single parent working brutal hours, back-to-back shifts at the hospital and weekend cleaning jobs. I understood even at that age, she needed help. So when she hired a babysitter, I wasn't surprised. Her name was Marilyn. She was soft-spoken, warm, and had this gentle smile that looked honest. She wore long sleeves all the time. She was always patient with me, something I wasn't used to. For the first 2 weeks, she felt like the safest adult in my world. Marilyn cooked amazing food. She helped with homework, listened to my silly stories, and even taught me card tricks. I got excited when she walked through the door. My mum loved her. I adored her. Nothing was strange at the start. But then, little things started happening. One evening, I could have sworn Marilyn was talking to someone in the kitchen. I heard her murmur, "No. Not now." I peeked inside. She was alone, washing dishes. When she saw me, she smiled like nothing had happened. Another day, I caught her staring down the hallway, her face pale, lips moving silently. When I asked what she was looking at, she snapped out of it and laughed it off. Just daydreaming. These moments were easy to dismiss. I trusted her. Completely. It wasn't until the third week that things became undeniably wrong. It started with a noise that pulled me out of sleep at almost midnight. Tiny footsteps running across the hallway carpet. Fast. Light. Playful. I sat up, confused. Marilyn sometimes stayed up late, but these footsteps were too small to be hers. I opened my bedroom door a crack. The hallway was dark, silent. I went back to bed, turned on my lamp, and convinced myself I was dreaming. But the next night, the footsteps returned. And the next. Always around midnight. Then on the fifth night, I wasn't woken by footsteps. I was woken by whispering. Soft, childlike whispering from somewhere near my bed. That morning, Marilyn sat me down at the breakfast table, her eyes red, her voice trembling, but still soft, still caring. She said, "I need you to follow some rules at night. Just until your mom gets a different shift." Her rules were strange. 1. Don't leave your room after 11. 2. Keep your lamp on. 3. If you hear breathing under your bed, don't look. 4. If someone calls your name after midnight, don't answer. I laughed. I thought she was joking. She didn't laugh back. I was curious, but I didn't ask any questions. A few days later, my mom was running late from her shift, and it was just Marilyn and me. That night, I fell asleep with the lamp on. At around 1:30 a.m., someone knocked gently on my bedroom door. I heard my mom's voice. "Sweetheart. It's me. Come here." Relief washed through me. She was finally home. I opened my door. But the hallway was empty. Pitch black. Cold. And then my mother's voice came again, from the darkness. "Come here, I'm right here." I took one step out. Suddenly, someone grabbed me from behind and yanked me back into the room. It was Marilyn. Her face was twisted with fear if she'd been expecting this moment. She whispered, "That's not your mother." She slammed my door shut right as something began crawling along the hallway carpet, dragging itself slowly toward my room. Then came the childlike whisper. "Play with me." I felt Marilyn shaking as she held the door handle against the pressure from the other side. She whispered frantic prayers under her breath. Then everything went quiet. When my mum eventually got home, Marilyn didn't leave. She stayed until sunrise. She sat me down again and told me everything. She'd once babysat a little boy in another house, years before meeting us. The boy died. Suddenly. Tragically. But he didn't leave. He followed her. Always. Every family she worked for, he appeared, attracted to the new kids. But according to her, he wasn't evil. Just lonely. Confused. And jealous. He didn't want other children taking her attention. Marilyn had been trying to keep him away from me since the day she arrived, which was why she whispered alone in rooms, stared at hallways, and begged someone not to interfere. Now it made sense. She wasn't the danger. She was the shield. My mum fired Marilyn a week later, thinking she'd had a mental breakdown. I tried to explain, but I sounded insane. We moved out shortly after. To this day, I don't sleep with my door open. And I don't sleep with the hallway lights off. I grew up in a quiet little town in Oregon. The kind of place where parents let their kids ride bikes until sunset, and the biggest drama was whose dog dug up whose garden. So when the substitute teacher walked into my 5th grade classroom, we didn't expect anything strange. But looking back, that week was the most terrifying experience of my childhood. Our regular teacher, Mrs. Whitaker, had called in sick for the week. The substitute introduced herself as Miss Alder. She was tall, perfectly put together, and smiled constantly. Not a warm smile, but the kind people wear when they're trying hard to look normal. "Good morning, class," she said softly. Her voice was oddly calm. Controlled. Almost rehearsed. Most substitutes were chaotic or friendly. She was neither. She watched us the way a scientist watches an experiment. It started small. During attendance, she paused at Alyssa's name. "Alyssa, your cat Bella seems anxious lately," she said quietly. "You should keep her inside for a while." Alyssa looked stunned. She didn't talk about her cat at school. Her family had just adopted Bella. No one outside her house knew that. Okay, she whispered. Miss Alder smiled like she was proud of herself. A few minutes later, she looked at Griffin, one of the class clowns. "You shouldn't lie to your mother about your homework," she said gently. Griffin stiffened. He had lied the night before. We all knew because he bragged about it on the bus. But she wasn't on the bus. And she didn't laugh or tease him. She spoke like she was correcting a child she knew well. That was the first moment something felt wrong. Throughout the day, she never stopped watching us. Not in a creepy obvious way, she was subtle. She listened. She memorized. She observed how each of us reacted to things. She asked personal questions in the tone of casual conversation. "Is your dad still working the night shift, Jenna? Did you ever find your house key, Leo? Are you still scared of the dark, Miles?" None of us understood how she knew any of it. But kids don't immediately tell adults when something feels off. We kept quiet. We convinced ourselves we were imagining it. Kids are trained to trust teachers. During lunch, Miss Alder didn't sit with the other teachers. She stood near the edge of the cafeteria, watching us. I was sitting with my friend Ethan when she suddenly appeared behind him. Like she'd been standing there for a long time. She leaned down and said softly, "Ethan, your uncle, he shouldn't be alone tonight. Tell your mother." Ethan froze. His uncle lived 2 towns away. Barely anyone in class knew he even had an uncle. Why? He whispered. Miss Alder straightened up, still smiling. Just tell her. And then she walked away. Ethan didn't eat after that. He kept glancing at the cafeteria doors. That was the first time I saw real fear in someone else's eyes. On Tuesday morning, Ethan didn't come to school. His mother said he woke up crying at 3 a.m., panicking, insisting someone had been outside his window. Did you go check? My mom later asked. I looked. I didn't see anything. But Ethan swore someone had been there. And he swore she whispered to him through the glass. No one believed him. Not his parents. Not the school. Kids have nightmares, right? Kids exaggerate. Kids imagine things. But we knew. We knew it was her. On Wednesday afternoon, Miss Alder decided to walk us to the buses. Substitutes never did that. That was the duty teacher's job. But she insisted. Just to make sure everyone gets home safely, she said. She placed a hand on each student as they passed. A gentle grip. When I walked by, her fingers suddenly tightened on my arm. You smell like cedar today, she whispered. My heart dropped. 30 minutes earlier, I played near the cedar trees behind the playground, the spot where no teacher would have seen me. I pulled away and ran onto the bus. From the window, I watched her standing alone in the parking lot. Still. Smiling. Watching. Not waving. Just watching. By Thursday, none of us wanted to be in her class. We whispered about telling the principal, but fear kept us silent. And she was careful. She acted completely normal whenever other teachers were around. But then she took things further. During reading time, she knelt beside my desk and whispered. You shouldn't go to the woods behind your house anymore. My blood went cold. The woods behind my house weren't visible from school. I had never told anyone I went there. Not even my mom. How do you know that? I stammered. She smiled with her eyes, not her lips. I pay attention. I didn't read a single page after that. Friday was the last day before Mrs. Whitaker returned. That morning, Miss Alder announced. Today, we're having class outside. No one questioned her. She led us toward the wooded trail behind the school. Not the playground or open field. The woods. Deep enough that teachers couldn't see us from the building, far past the school's approved boundaries. She claimed it was for a nature exercise. Once we were far enough in, she stopped suddenly in a small clearing. We all gathered together instinctively, unsure. She turned, smiling. I want to show you something, she said. She reached into her bag and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. Then another. Then several more. My stomach dropped when she spread them across the ground. They were printed photos of us. Taken from outside our homes. Different days, different times. Griffin riding his bike in his driveway. Alyssa walking her cat in the yard. Ethan is sitting on his front porch. Me, standing near the woods behind my house, taken from a distance. All of us froze. How did you? I whispered, my voice barely audible. She didn't answer. She just looked at us one by one with terrifying calm. I've been studying you, she said softly. 4 months. You children are fascinating. A few kids started crying silently. She knelt down and traced her finger over Griffin's picture. You go outside alone a lot, she said. You really shouldn't. It's dangerous when you don't know who's watching. Her tone made my skin crawl. She reached into her bag again and pulled out a pair of gloves. Black. Thin. Like the kind crime scenes investigators wear. She slipped them on slowly, watching our reactions. Every child stepped back at the same time. "That's enough," Leo whispered behind me. "Guys, we need to go." Her smile disappeared. Her face changed. Hard. Cold. Expressionless. She pointed toward the trail. "No one would hear you scream out here." My lungs froze. I heard someone sob behind me. She took a single step toward us. That was it. We ran. All of us. Sprinting through trees, tripping over branches, pushing through bushes so hard that leaves scraped our faces. Someone fell behind us but got pulled up by two others. I didn't dare look back. I heard her footsteps for a few seconds before they stopped. When we burst out onto the blacktop, we were scraped, shaking, crying, breathless. But when teachers tried to ask what happened, we couldn't explain it. Not in a way they'd take seriously. She knows stuff. She followed us. She was watching us. She took us to the woods. It all sounded childish. Dramatic. Exaggerated. The adults told us to calm down. Miss Adler had disappeared. When the school tried to contact her, her phone number didn't exist. Her paperwork had errors. No address. No emergency contact. The district office said they had never hired a substitute named Miss Alder. Ever. She had walked into our school with a forged badge and flawless confidence. And nobody questioned her. Not until it was too late. That night, long after I was supposed to be asleep, I looked out my bedroom window. Someone was standing near the cedar trees behind our house. Unmoving. My chest tightened. It was her. Miss Alder. I contemplated on alerting my mom. But when I checked again, she was gone. I could barely sleep the whole night. They never found her. The police said she must have been studying us long before she came into our classroom. A month passed before I could go to bed at night without looking out my bedroom window to be sure Miss Adler was nowhere around. I don't talk about this often, mostly because people never believe me. But what happened to me when I was 7 years old shaped the way I see the world. It taught me that children sometimes experience things adults simply cannot understand, or refuse to. Back then, we lived in a small house at the edge of a quiet neighborhood, one of those places where all the houses looked the same, where parents assumed nothing bad could ever crawl past the trimmed hedges and smiling neighbors. And even though my parents weren't deeply religious, they took me to church once in a while. Easter, Christmas, the occasional Sunday when my mom didn't feel too tired. But every night, something came for me. I was a light sleeper. The smallest sound would wake me. But the first time it happened, there was no sound. No movement. No warning. I simply opened my eyes. And couldn't move. Not even a finger. My body felt like it had been poured into concrete, heavy and cold. My heartbeat thundered in my ears, and yet my breathing was shallow, barely there. I tried to scream for my mother, but my throat betrayed me. Nothing came out. At first, I thought it was a nightmare. But nightmares don't let you stare at your own room with your eyes wide open. Nightmares don't let you feel the room change temperature. Nightmares don't let you hear the soft shuffling of feet around your bed. Multiple feet. 3, maybe 5. I remember the air turning icy, so cold that my teeth would have chattered if my jaw wasn't locked in place. Shadows shifted at the corners of my room. They didn't walk like humans. They moved in slow, swaying motions, like tall silhouettes dragged across water. But it was the sound. God, the sound. A thin, wet hiss right beside my ear. And then a voice, barely above a whisper. Audrey. My name. Drawn out. Almost curious. Almost excited. Terror shot through me, but I couldn't scream. Couldn't move. I wanted to cry. I wanted to grab my blanket and run into my parents' room, but all I could do was lie there stiffly while something leaned over me, its breath chilling the skin of my neck. That was the first night. But not the last. It happened constantly. Some nights there were 3 of them, gliding around my bed like they were circling prey. Other nights, 5, lurking behind the door, crouching near the foot of my bed, or hovering over me with heads shaped wrong, too long, too narrow. They never touched me. They only watched. Always whispering my name in that thin, serpentine voice. Audrey. I started refusing to sleep. A child that age shouldn't know what dread feels like, but I did. At school, I'd fall asleep at my desk. My teachers complained. Kids laughed at me. But the worst part? No one believed me. My mother would tuck me in and kiss my forehead, saying, "Sweetheart, they're just nightmares." But they weren't nightmares. I was awake. Frozen. Listening to things no child should ever hear. If nightmares are shadows of the mind, then these things, these visitors, had weight. Had presence. They were real. The night everything changed was the worst one. I woke up paralyzed again, the familiar terror flooding my veins. But this time, they were closer. I could hear their feet, thin and sharp, clicking softly on my wooden floor. One of them leaned so close that its chin brushed my cheek. I felt its breath, cold enough to burn. It didn't whisper my name this time. It whispered. Tonight. I don't know what they meant, but something inside me snapped. Every instinct screamed that if I didn't fight, if I didn't do something, I would never wake up again. And with a strength I didn't know a 7-year-old could have, I forced myself to move. My fingers twitched. My arm lifted. And then, like breaking through a sheet of ice, I rolled off the bed and hit the floor hard. For the first time in months, I could move. I scrambled to my knees. I didn't run to my mother, like you might expect. I didn't even try to turn on the lights. I knelt beside my bed, shaking uncontrollably. And I prayed. I begged. I begged for help. I begged for protection. I begged for someone, anyone, to chase away the things that were swallowing my nights whole. My tears soaked my pajamas. My teeth chattered. And in the middle of that whispered, desperate plea, the room changed. The cold air lifted. The shadows retreated like spilled ink being sucked back into the floor. The suffocating weight pressing on my chest evaporated. And then, silence. A silence so complete it rang in my ears. I sat there kneeling, waiting for them to come back. But they never did. From that night on, the paralysis stopped. The whispers stopped. The cold, the shadows, the watchers, they were gone. But something else happened. Every night after that, just as I was about to fall asleep, I felt a single warm breath brush against my cheek, like something gentle, something protective, exhaling softly. It was comforting, not frightening. Not once did the visitors return. I started praying at bedtime and sometimes in the morning in gratitude for a peaceful night's rest. Even now, as an adult, I sometimes wake up at night and feel that same warm presence near me, not oppressive, not threatening, but watchful. Guarding. Because whatever answered me that night, whatever pushed those things out of my room, didn't leave. And I'm grateful.